Paul, what's up, man?
Hey, Nick. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you. So we're talking some strategy today, and our
We
strategy was
are.
just to not bring Mike.
I wouldn't put too much into that strategy, but it's going to work today because we have a guest that has plenty of strategy and wisdom to share with us.
Mike's always great for strategy. I just have to bust his chops when he's not here.
So Peter Doyle is with us, and we are doing our next episode of the Machine Shop MBA series. And I was lucky enough to have Peter on Machine Shop Mastery probably about a year or so ago.
Lucky, really?
Yeah. It was absolutely lucky. The listeners were lucky. You're a truly humble guy, Peter, but it was a great episode. And when we're thinking about, a guest that could talk about strategy in machine shops and a business that was also a former Top Shops winner, since this is partly sponsored by the Top Shops Conference and Modern Machine Shop Magazine, Peter's name just came right to the top. So, welcome to the show, Peter.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here.
So I'm going to say it's great to see you again, Peter, because, before the meeting or before the call, I'm always like, okay, Paul, so who are we talking to today? Whoever sets it up kind of briefs the other hosts, and he's describing your company. I go to the URL and I was like, I've been there.
Yeah.
I remember that guy. No surprise that you're a Top Shop, because I thought you ran a great operation.
Yeah.
It's good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you. No, love the work you guys are doing. Happy to be a part of it. And obviously we're a student of strategy as much as a practitioner, right? So happy to talk about it with you guys and see if we can come up with some helpful things for the industry.
Yeah. So let's start with a bit of a background. You are not the founder of the business you run, but you were hired in, and I definitely encourage people to go listen to your episode of Machine Shop Mastery. But let's start with a little bit of your background and a bit of a snapshot of Hirsh Precision as well.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So I started my career in the Air Force. I was an Air Force officer and lived and worked around the world for several years, which was tons of fun, and had a chance to work in a lot of different cultures and travel to a lot of different countries. And then I decided I kind of wanted to transition, both for family reasons. I was deploying a lot at the time, and decided, I want to serve the public in the private sector. And so I went to grad school, and then kind of settled in Colorado. And had a variety of jobs, fun ones actually. Worked on an organic farm. I think in grad school for a summer, for like 2 months, I was the lumber department supervisor at Home Depot, which was great. And did some business consulting. And after grad school, ended up working with Deloitte. And so traveled a lot and learned a lot. That was great for me. I was in their strategy and operations practice, but most of what I did was around major M&A transactions, supply chain optimization, and I got to work in some different industries, the real estate industry, the technology industry, and manufacturing. And really, I would say that's how I wound up here. I love what is happening at a macro scale with technology and manufacturing, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of it. So I really connected with Hirsh, which is a company that's been investing in technology for many years, and was friends with the Hirsh family. And then somehow Mike Hirsh thought it was a good idea to give me the keys to the building a few years ago. And this has been my fun journey ever since.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Cool way to enter the industry. Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit. When were you guys a Top Shop winner? And which category? Do you recall that?
Yes. We were a Top Shop winner in 2018. And frankly, now that a couple of shops have been recognized more than once, I feel like we should be putting our best foot forward and seeing if we can get recognized again.
Sure.
But we were recognized for shop floor practices, which has always kind of been a strength of ours. So nice to get recognized for that.
So are you filling out the survey every year, or you're like, we won, I've already reached the mountaintop?
Yeah. Well, I think we've missed a couple of years, but regretted it. It's got a wealth of information, as you know, all great ideas. I think what's interesting for companies that have been doing it for several years is that things ebb and flow. And so you can explain what's as interesting about the Top Shops survey results is, yes, where do you rank highly? But then how do you explain the areas in which you don't rank highly? And why, in some cases, is that maybe not cause for concern, but actually a function of, what your priorities are at the time, or maybe prior years of investment are offset by a return on that investment later on. So things kind of vary. Those measures ebb and flow, I think. But we love Top Shops. I encourage, everybody to fill it out. It's really useful information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Metalworking Nation, Paul here. The countdown is on for Top Shops 2025, and I want you to be there. It's happening on November 11th and 12th in Charlotte, North Carolina at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. The best of the best in the machining industry will be all in one place, sharing strategies, best practices, and leveling up together. And optionally, come in the afternoon of the 10th to visit Roush Yates Manufacturing Solutions and see one of the most incredible machine shops in the world. If you've seen my videos of their shop, you know how amazing it is. That tour alone is worth the price of admission. Nick, Mike, and I will all be there, and we want you in the room with us. Registration is officially open, and the team at Top Shops has graciously offered listeners of Making Chips 20% off the registration price. That's $200 or more off with code MAK20. So go to topshopsevent.com, grab your spot now, and I hope to see you there. So this is probably a good segue into strategic growth and, creating a vision and sort of leading your organization to a very specific place that, as a leader, you want to get to, because you mentioned maybe some areas are not a cause concern, some are, but, even just creating that opinion requires having a vision of where you're going and how you're going to get there. And I thought, on Machine Shop Mastery, you brought just a ton of that sort of very thoughtfulness to the way that, you're growing Hirsh. So I'd love for you to maybe share some of the things that you've done since, taking the helm of that business and sort of what you're doing to lead it into the future in a real strategic way.
Sure. I guess first I would say as a primer for the strategy conversation, I think, because I'm not the founder, I kind of joined midstream. And one of the things that I think is important with strategy is past. The past does matter, the present and the future. Each of those can make a difference because strategy evolves, right? It's sort of relative to what's happened at your company, right? When you define what can happen in the near term, and then it's also relative to to what's happening in the economy and what's happening with your sort of peer rivals in the industry. So there was a number of decisions, to answer your question, that I walked into, right? We had started with this motto of quality work on time and really baked it into the culture. Now, that's not a strategy, right? Because nobody competes on poor quality and late deliveries. So it's not differentiated. Everybody talks about that, but it's table stakes. But then we had also decided we were going to be focused on high mix, low volume, kind of in the 80s. We had started to do work for the medical industry in the 80s. We are a relational company. And so that sort of allowed us to be really good partners with engineers over time. And so I walked into a number of those norms. And I think the things that I felt like I could add were there's probably 3 or 4 main ones that come to mind. One was, greater structure. My earlier career was really focused on operational execution. And so I've always encouraged the team to, standardize and document processes, use systems. So structure would one. The other is I really believe that what we do is about more than machining parts. Our vision is to improve quality of life through precision manufacturing solutions. And that shapes everything that we do. It shapes how we select our customers. And I think a customer focus has been the second area where I really encouraged our company to grow into, to perceive ourselves not as selling a commodity, but to walk in our customer's shoes and think, if I was that engineer trying to get something, launched, what kind of experience would I want to have with the supply chain? And then agility would be another one. I'm passionate about developing leaders and giving people the adventure of responsibility for their decisions and taking risks. And I think when you delegate decisions to the lowest qualified level, you can move faster. So agility and speed kind of go together. So those are some of the things that I think mindsets that have changed for us. Practically speaking, we started a sales and marketing function, and that's been a learning process. We don't just want to get in front of anybody. We want to get in front of the right people. So how do you find those right people? I spend a lot more time with customers than we used to. That's a change. We did a brand refresh and a website upgrade, and we've spent some time, developing technical content for within our marketing function. Those are some practical ways that we built awareness, and then consideration. In that awareness stage, I would say customers have self-qualified, and so then they would give us a shot. It's a wonderful thing now. We probably get 5 new companies a week reaching out that we've never heard of, asking us if we're a good fit for them. And
that's amazing.
Those, the project size and complexity is also a better fit because of our efforts. And then, the quote stage is obviously kind of consideration and those collaborative discussions about the project as a whole. I would say that another decision that maybe I didn't mention before that I made is we were grandfathered into regulated industries, and I went ahead and pursued those. So we are, ITAR registered, ISO. We were ISO 9001, and then that's kind of superseded by AS 9100D for us. Mm-hmm. We're also ISO 1345 and FDA registered. And my goodness, does that raise the bar internally? We price non-regulated work differently, and I think non-regulated customers benefit from the discipline that we're having to exercise in those regulated markets. But I think that complexity also means that the specifications for customers and projects and success is not strictly and only defined by the print. The print is still primary, but there is a whole lot of other aspects of performance that matter to our customers today that didn't used to 6 years ago. So we're having to grow up in some other functions.
Mm-hmm. So Peter, when I heard you say that, like, you kind of inherited this Hirsh opportunity, and I think about, like, you talking growth and quality of life, and that means different things to different people. We've had another guest on who runs a 5-person shop in a kind of a small building, and their whole goal is to just get as much out of every square foot of that building, not expand the team too much, not expand the building too much, and create time freedom for those 5 individuals. I say they kind of run it like a band, and they just want to have a great band. And then I look at my family, and we just constantly expanding and building expansions, hiring more people and getting more machines. And that's what growth and quality of life looks like for my family. So when you inherited this business, and now you're in the driver's seat, how much of that appetite for growth and risk was kind of like, okay, run it this way, and how much of that did you get to determine with the team in terms of like how quickly you want to grow?
Well, so for clarity, for maybe future conversations, I didn't actually inherit the business. I did purchase the business.
Well, I didn't mean inherit, but
no, I just
not like literally. Yeah,
just for clarity,
it's
good
helped, clarification.
It's sharpened my judgment. I think so. I believe in Hirsh. I like, I believe in manufacturing. I believe in progress, and there's a lot of problems in the world that need honest hard work applied to them. And I want to be a part of that. And it honestly got to a point in our last facility where it felt irresponsible not to take that bite. As disruptive as it was, and as hard as it is to expand, we've got a team to look after and families to provide for. And we simply did not have the runway to shoehorn, anything extra into that building, right? That wasn't always the case. It took a while. And so now that we're in this home, we're around slightly more affordable housing for the team. And we certainly have an opportunity to expand. We believe we can achieve about 4x our current revenue out of the building. And we're just racing to do that. We've got a lot of opportunity and a lot of interest. And like I said, I believe in the team. I think we deserve to win.
Yeah. Was it easy for you to create that kind of early stage alignment? Like, we want to grow this much. Or was there some people who are like, hey, I like the company we have at the size we have it, and it's more about just sustaining what we've got going on? Was it easy to get everybody on board towards the vision that you brought when you purchased the business?
No. And, I try to be a good team player, but I don't always ask. Mm-hmm. So, there was an aspect where I believed in it, and some people probably followed after out of a sense of curiosity than real, like buy-in.
Sure.
But, somebody told me just years ago that I was talking to as an engineer on our team, and they said, at the time we made that decision, like, I don't think everybody was totally sold on that idea. And I was like, well, here we are.
Yeah, somebody's got to make the call.
That's right.
Absolutely.
I think decisiveness is something that I've been trying to work on. And when you buy a company, growth is baked in to that decision. And sure. I think it's wonderful to grow. I would far prefer the challenges of growth than the challenges that come with a down year. I would pick the challenges of growth 8 days a week.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Awesome.
Peter, you mentioned investing in the sales and marketing function.
Yeah.
And maybe that was something Hirsh hadn't really done prior. And in my exposure to the industry, I think that is a real differentiator in shops that really lean into that and shops that don't. And
absolutely.
Clearly it leads to growth when done well. But maybe just explain how you've gone about doing that. Having 5 new opportunities a week coming inbound is an enviable position that I think most shops would love to be in, but it's not something that just came overnight, right? You invested heavily in that situation. So maybe share a little bit of what you did there, because I think that is one of the things that drives the ability to make all these other decisions, right? Without growth, without the ability to be well above your break-even point every month, it's hard to do everything else to the level that you want to do it.
Yeah. Well, so we have, like anything, it's a process of continuous improvement. When I think back to where it began, I would, when I first bought the company, I started sending out occasional letters to customers. And the intent was to introduce myself more as a leader, and then also reassure them in the transition about what was happening and communicate where we were making investments and how that benefited our customers. And I think that's essentially, that was free. And so if anybody's not doing that, I would highly suggest you set aside the time to do it. It feels a little uncomfortable. It almost doesn't matter who gets it. It almost doesn't matter if they read it, because it is good for you to practice communicating what you are doing as a business owner to improve your business. And
good.
Sharing that. So I started doing that, and then I had a customer who was impressed with us and was transitioning out of their business development role in the customer's company. He was essentially retiring or semi-retired, but wasn't really of retirement age. He had just had a successful career. And I think he took a liking to Hirsh and to this idea that I felt like we could grow at a 25% year over year clip for the next 10 years. And he thought, let's work together. And so he came on part-time, and I've got to be honest, he was incredibly effective. I have hired a few different people with more experience and capability than I have had. And if I have had any success, it is because of my team. The only credit I could take is that I would put a vote in to approve that we hire them. But in a fraction of the time of somebody more junior, he could qualify an opportunity, and get the wheels turning with a new customer. And he changed our mindsets about about our posture at the business. Our posture prior to that, although there's nothing wrong with it, was really focused on the craft. And I think what he helped us understand is you don't need to persuade your customer that they need a 1/4-inch drill. You need to listen that they need a 1/4-inch hole. Is that kind of shift to say, like, make sure, don't try and communicate to the customer what you think you're good at when you shape a strategy. Think about why the customer is paying you. Make sure you understand, what value they perceive that you provide. And if you ask that, you'll almost always learn something that you would not have given yourself credit for. And so I think he helped he helped customer service kind of be less of the department and more ingrained in our mindset across the company. And then eventually he decided he wanted to retire again, I guess you could say. And during his tenure, we hired Amanda, who's leading our marketing efforts today. And Amanda brings an incredible strength in systems. She's a learning person by nature, and tenacious and proactive. And so I've been amazed at what she's been able to set up for us. We didn't used to have a CRM. We started with Salesforce. It was a flop. We switched to HubSpot, and that would be another tip. If you don't have a CRM and you don't feel like you have time to put anything into it, think again. It has become my, kind of go-to memory jogger for what is happening across a customer. I used to think it was manipulative to constantly be recording what somebody was saying because maybe it distracted me from the conversation or, something like that. But I am far more useful if I can show up now with the CEO of a customer and say, tell me about that project. Tell me about this one. A year ago, this was the plan. What changed? And it makes me a better business partner for them. So the CRM was another big milestone in that journey. And then I mentioned the brand refresh. That was a big project. We considered over 700 different logo designs when we did that. There's a lot of
I've been through some complicated logo projects, but never 700 designs.
Yeah, it was very intentional.
Wow, that's awesome.
And we rolled that out. And then the website, we continue to improve. So that's some of what we've done on the marketing side. And then on the sales side, I've also not ever perceived myself as very good at sales, and have been on a journey of learning to show up in a different way. People have convinced me that I am the best salesperson for my company, and my comfort zone was definitely with my head in the business, working with the team that I so enjoy and helping solve problems. But the truth is, it's a myopic worldview, and I am responsible for bringing in the external market message. And so that's changed over the last, couple of years where I'm more externally facing, and that's been enormously helpful as well.
That's awesome. So it's interesting, Peter. We started with Salesforce. That was, for me in our business, one of my first roles in sales was with no CRM, and I was in field service, repairing and replacing way covers and chip conveyors for end users. And, as third generation, I was like, how do we measure this? I've got a bullseye on my back. Everyone's going to just inevitably be like, oh, it's the owner's son. I'm like, how do we measure sales performance? And at the time we were writing like 5-paragraph essays of what we did all week and sending it to the sales manager, who was way too busy to ever read them.
And that works.
We need a CRM.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say, strategy and decisions are relevant at every size. So I think that works. Yeah. I think that's a great discipline.
It's better than nothing.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I was like, well, if we can't read this, or if we can't like index the database and find what you were looking for 3 years from now, it's really not that valuable. So, I started, you brought up sales and marketing. I started researching Salesforce, or I started researching CRM.
Okay.
And Salesforce is doing such a good job with marketing that every article I could find on CRM was written by them, and it brought me to their website, and we ended up with Salesforce. And then later we ended up switching to HubSpot, just like you did. But I do think, CRMs are so much more affordable and accessible than ever. And there's so many options. Like you really should start with a base level CRM if you want to run even like a baseline marketing and sales organization. So I agree with you in that completely.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I'm learning is that doing sales is different from managing sales.
Absolutely.
So there's different skills, and you want to you move slowly through that journey, I think.
Mm-hmm. What would you say you're better at, Peter? Would you like being in front of the customer and getting that next opportunity, or leading and managing a sales function?
I think being in front of the customer today. It feels more applied, more relevant. I'm increasingly comfortable at higher levels in our customer organizations. It was we have a few customers that have, kind of multiple billions in revenue. And I've just met their senior, kind of C-suite leadership. And that's new. For the first several decades of us supporting that customer, no one really went any higher than the purchasing manager. And so I'm increasingly comfortable there. And I also know enough about what happens inside the business that I can rapidly qualify on a technical level whether a project makes sense for us or be helpful in some other way by providing a referral, and so I can save them time and add value. I think managing a sales team is obviously something that I hope to get better at in the future.
Yeah, I think when you're the business owner, you can speak from that perspective to other business owners, and as you work your way up the chain there, and it just makes you so much more effective as a salesperson, because ultimately these are all business decisions, not purchasing decisions. And
yeah.
So, yeah, I tend to agree with that. Like, and the more ownership stake I take and the more ownership responsibility I take, the better I seem to be at, talking directly to somebody who's got kind of that P&L responsibility, if you will.
Yeah.
One other point you made that I wanted to just emphasize for the audience is when you said, you were talking about a sales or marketing activity, and you said, even if nobody reads it, it's valuable for you to go through that exercise. And then the next thing you segued into was somebody was attracted to your brand and what you've built, and they were like, hey, let's work together. And then that person made a tremendous impact on your business. So like, you were marketing at the time, I would imagine, with the goal of attracting new customers and growing business with existing customers. And what you attracted was what became an employee, or like, I don't know if it was a consulting agreement or a direct employee or part-time or whatever it was, but an asset working on your team that then connected you to so many more customers and changed your perspective. And that has happened to me so many times.
Yeah.
Like, where the marketing and the brand has brought somebody who brought a network of opportunities or a book of business or whatever you want to call it with them. And that's what I was actually marketing more than, hey, buy my product.
Right.
I think it's so relevant.
I think part of this conversation reminds me, going back to strategy, that I believe, I mentioned that it is relative. It's dynamic, and it's relative to the external environment. But I also think it has to be customer-centric.
Mm-hmm.
I think any notion that you can define the strategy without actually getting on a plane, going to your customer and saying, why do you work with us, is flawed. I think the easiest, most practical thing you can do to determine where you're strong today and where the future, might be for your company is to just ask.
That's amazing. Just asking base level questions. Sometimes I go and I'm just like, so, what are the chances that we could do business together, or what would it take to win? I just go ask like the first, most obvious question that's in my head, and I don't tiptoe around it. And they just tell you.
Right.
Like, like, if you want our business, you got to do this. Like, all right, thanks. Saved a bunch of time. We're going to get started on doing that.
And we do the same thing. If a supplier walks in, and says, hey, I'm not here to sell you something. I'm here to listen. What's your experience like with my company? That immediately invites you to, kind of collaborate with them in improving the relationship.
Manufacturers, what is your biggest headache? Is it measuring improving profitability, gaining efficiencies with AI and automation, maybe tightening up your cybersecurity, maybe getting your business ready to sell? At CLA, their goal is to know you and help you with challenges like these and more. Every day, CLA helps manufacturers tap into millions in revenue and cost savings, like one manufacturer that boosted capacity and revenues by 15 to 20%. Visit CLAconnect.com to hear real success stories and learn how you can grow your top and bottom line.
Peter, I'd love to dig a little deeper into that, because you mentioned you, for years, only talked to the purchasing manager maybe, and now you're talking to C-suite people in pretty large companies. How did those conversations even come about? Did you request those? Because you said a couple things in this. One that jumped out to me, your target of growing 25% per year. That right there is a pretty lofty goal for a shop.
Yeah, and that, we don't mind if we don't hit that.
Sure.
It's a goal, but you want to be fiscally responsible as well. And so
sure.
We're not just growing for growth's sake. We're growing and allocating dollars where we think we're appreciated and we can make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
shoot
absolutely.
for the moon, and even if you miss, you will land among the stars. That was in my elementary school classroom.
Nice.
Wall, so.
That's gold. That's gold.
So yeah, I love that. Love that vision you set. And then, yeah, just being able to, have you mentioned it in the context of the CRM, right? Having really good notes and context about their business and their goals and their initiatives and their projects and their big programs, and then having a fairly human heart-to-heart conversation with a fairly senior leader, which is a very strategic thing to do, rather than just calling up the buyer, hey, do you have any parts we can quote for you? Maybe just talk a little bit more about how you've sort of upped your game in that area, because I think that's a real differentiator, seems like to me.
Well, when I first joined the industry, I was worried that we were a commodity. People have been cutting metal and plastic for, over 100 years. It's like, oh my gosh, that's a scary place to be in the market. And it can always feel like across many industries, things are being commoditized. Even in software, it can feel like, gosh, there's so many software companies out there that, maybe are doing something similar. And I think that was inaccurate. I don't think that machining companies realize the closer you get to your customer, the more valuable you become. Mm-hmm. I think, and the more you will be viewed more as a partner instead of simply a commodity provider, right? If you need a rubber gasket, they're not going to visit you, right? And say, unless you're buying a lot of them, how are the rubber gaskets going? Because they've positioned that business to be maybe more of an e-commerce, kind of model. These are produced in gigantic batches. But when you're in subcontracting, as a business, these are precision components. You're taking a $5 chunk of aluminum and turning it into a, $495 aerospace part or something like that. Like that is a different kind of dynamic. And so I think I just realized when we go to more senior levels in the organization and we understand what's on their mind, what their strategic goals are, it helps us serve them better. It is in their interests for me to know what they need. It used to be that we would receive orders, for the next few weeks. And there's a large section of the market that we can't serve that functions with that level of responsiveness. Today, I like to understand what's happening with our customer product families for the next few years. I really like to understand the outlook, and I know that I'm not alone in that. So getting the details around that is really helpful in clarifying expectations around like sustaining engineering practices, for example. If the volumes are going to pick up, where can we optimize throughput and cost? And if the volumes are declining, what other options do we have in terms of ordering behavior or kind of product lifecycle management that we should get in front of with the customer? So part of it is that the decisions, the conversations I have with decision makers at customers are simply more effective than the conversations I can have with, for example, a junior buyer. Nothing against junior buyers. We obviously work with many of them. The other party that we've really chosen to work with primarily is engineers. We market ourselves and partner with engineers more than buyers. And that's been another decision that's important to us. We think that we win by being friendly, great at our jobs, and moving fast. And that combination really works for engineers, in our opinion, as they, as an NPI partnership.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about the roles within the customers. And, earlier you mentioned when you started leading Hirsh that you were focusing on certain industries, but you took that to another level by like getting all the certifications that you mentioned. And you want to talk a little bit about like the market segments and the certain industries and how you chose to double down on some, or were there any
Sure.
you decided let's not do those anymore? And how did you make those decisions?
Sure. Well, obviously when we were selecting customers, we want to first understand, if I was to give you like my hot take on strategy, it's find people who inspire you and serve them well. And for us, the people who inspire us are the engineers inventing things that improve quality of life. And so that's
awesome.
who we want to, serve well. And you look at, both the aerospace and the medical industries, it's, each one of those involves lives at stake. The safety in aerospace is a major factor. In medicine, if somebody can have a procedure that's cheaper, faster, they don't have to stay in a hospital for 3 days, and they can get back home to their family, or they can walk, all of these things improve quality of life. So that was kind of our first filter. And then, of course, you look at size and growth rates of industries. The fundamentals of healthcare are good. It's far larger than any other industry. As a percentage of GDP, it's something like 17, 18%. The population in the world is growing. And in certain areas that we serve, it's also aging. And so that drives orthopedic, both large bone, and then from a more active lifestyle standpoint, some of the extremity and small bone. We also really like surgical robotics. I've liked that since I was a kid. If I hadn't gone to the Air Force Academy, my other option was a mechanical engineering degree in Texas, working directly for the professor at the time who was involved in surgical robotics. And, it's amazing. I read the other day in this space of the 30,000 or so orthopedic surgeons in the US, 80% of them don't believe in surgical robotics. And that's coming down every year as clinical data shows, technology is really helping. And, it helps with precision. It helps with recovery time. It drives cost down, fewer return visits, fewer complications. And so I'm thrilled that we get to be a part of that. And I think in a way, technology is playing the same role in manufacturing. It's the humans who are being creative, who are designing the process. Anything that we can, viably automate, we want to, so that they can spend their time on other things, but also because in certain ways, the technology is better at doing it repeatably. So
yeah, it's a perfect segue into the next point. But I usually don't talk to the editors during the recording, but what you just said there, that needs to be our social media post, or whatever we put on video. Find the customers in the markets that inspire you and serve them well. That's a great strategy, because now everyone's totally bought into that. I think this is interesting. I love that I do work for SpaceX or for Zimmer or for whatever the medical company is.
Yeah,
we have a story. We built one protective covering for a machine that does proton therapy for cancer, and one of our presidents of one of our divisions had that performed on his larynx, and it got the cancer out. So how amazing is it that you're helping to build the machine that saved your life?
Yes,
so cool.
We are currently launching a disruptive product that can help one of my family members, and I'm just ecstatic about it. So that really helps. And like I said, I think we view our business as more than making the components. I mean, it is difficult to make the components, but quality and timeliness of a precision part is table stakes. And so I think for us, we want to recruit people who perceive themselves as engineers, as innovators, as problem solvers. We want them to feel at home at Hirsh. We want them to kind of understand the value they're providing, right, to these families all over the world that benefit from our quality work delivered on time.
Yeah, and you were talking about the surgical robotics and how they make decisions okay, when should it be automated? And then let's bring that into your own business and talk about how you make strategic equipment decisions and technology decisions. And, you're going through a similar decision tree in your own mind for when should a person operate this or manually, do this task versus when is it an automation type opportunity?
I guess, I'm reminded of the Top Shop survey where you've got 80 different kind of topics where they delineate top shops do this more than other shops. And what it doesn't quite explain is how you can knit those together to make a differentiated position. And a lot of times I think it's an accumulation of all these decisions that you make, right? It's how you lead. Are you very prescriptive? Are you very empowering? Are you very responsive, or are you very methodical, deliberate, prototype production, et cetera? And there's really no set framework, right? One of the rules of marketing is for every marketing strategy, there's an equal and opposite strategy. I remember the story of Norwegian salmon that was advertised as pink salmon, I think. And the competitor, it was very popular, and the competitor thought, what are we going to do? And so they produced a label that said, I can't remember, Atlantic salmon, guaranteed never to turn pink. And all of a sudden people thought, well, I don't want pink salmon. I didn't realize it could turn pink. That sounds bad.
I just thought salmon was like literally always pink.
So
someone's out like, not my salmon.
Yeah, exactly. So I think when it comes to strategy and how these decisions knit together, like which equipment you buy and why you buy it, again, you want to be market focused. We're in a subcontracting world. And so for us, we're really building a very high utilization, very responsive machining engine. That's our goal. And we have a long-standing reputation for quality. We're high mix automation. We have kind of a digital ecosystem of applications. Our culture and team provides a little bit of a moat, I think. And then all of that means that we also really enjoy playing with the disruptive technologies, the edges of industries where, creativity is happening are really exciting for us. And so we're trying to invest in ways that acknowledge we don't know exactly what work we're going to get. We don't know for sure. And so there will be a little bit of a compromise sometimes in the machining setup we can offer, but we more than make up for that with the idea that there's no setups and the first part is a good part. I mean, that's where we want to head, is to apply the technology and apply the creativity so that we are as, and I think long-term in the US, product life cycles are going to shorten. AI is being adopted at a much faster rate outside of machining than it is in machining. And we want to ride that wave, not be crushed by it. And if our engineers are constantly working with generative AI in the future and needing very responsive capabilities, then we have to, prioritize that in our design. The challenge for us is that we don't want to buy inexpensive, rickety equipment. And so we're having to learn a little bit about how, generally speaking, we buy very high quality equipment, and it's very durable equipment, and we use it a lot. But it's quite expensive to do that from a prototyping standpoint. And so we're navigating that today as we increase kind of as we build this NPI playbook, if you will, for how we put that together to be really responsive.
In terms of like brand selection, or I guess machine type or brand, do you try to stick to, one machine tool brand or one equipment brand, or do you kind of go, hodgepodge and mix?
Yeah, like call me back this afternoon and I'll have a different answer. This is an ongoing conversation.
Sure.
So far, we have invested in a lot of Akuma. We have DMG Mori, we have Sagami on the Swiss side, but we've had Citizens over the years. We've started to pare down the number of controllers that our team has to learn, and I think that is a little bit of a Southwest Airlines analog, where you gain efficiencies that are sort of hard to measure and a little bit invisible. But there's some very talented machine tool builders out there, and there are moments where we will buy a different brand because it's just such a good fit for what we need, for example, in the NPI world, and then accept that there's going to be a little bit of a reprocessing cost. We're going to have to get one more post, which is one of the most annoying aspects of our industry.
It really is.
But you're going to have to get one more post and reprocess that part as quickly as you can. And there's other accelerators. And honestly, I feel like a lot of our funds went into expanding our facility. And so we're still in a phase of now catching up to our historical investment in technology and catching up with our competitors in some ways. We need to finish our digital tool management rollout. We need to implement 0-point fixturing more broadly. We need to, kind of work on scaling that NPI and the programming governance a little bit more on the software side. And we're going to do that just as aggressively as we can, in a responsible way.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think there's kind of two ways. Standardization is always good, especially as you automate. The more standards and reliable, dependable processes, the better. Also, though, if you're only buying one type of machine tool, maybe it's nice to keep a secondary brand, kind of keep everybody honest, make sure that everyone knows they got to compete for your business.
Yes, yes. That's a factor as well. And we certainly keep that in mind. Again, I would not use machine tool selection as the only strategic choice that differentiates the company. Like there can't be one choice here that adds up to a differentiated position. It's you would occasionally decide to buy a different machine tool and take the learning curve and take the reprocessing if you need to, if it was the right, fit. But it's just a series of decisions, I think, trying to align things and nest them under the same vision of, okay, who are the people who inspire us? How do we serve them well?
Yeah, beautiful.
This is an awesome conversation, Peter. Just the way you say some of the things you say just convey how much thought you put into it and how much strategery is in the way you're thinking. You mentioned hiring smart people and people that were very good at certain things. As you build your team to then run the systems and design the systems that are going to help take the business at the growth level that you want, was that always natural for you to, hire good people and get out of their way kind of thing? Or did you learn over time that this is the way, that smart leaders do it?
It was not natural. And you can't read it in a book. Honestly, I realized, it became an emergency that I was not good at trusting other people. It was costing me my performance. My own performance was suffering. And my ability to lead was taking sort of a hit because I wasn't. There's a lot to it. I mean, there's running this business is hard. It can be isolating. It can be lonely, right? I'm always looking for wise counsel, and that goes for shaping strategy as well. But I think for me, I've done both. I have abdicated when so in other words, I disengaged too much and I was unhelpful as a manager. And then I have, failed to empower as well. And I'd like to think that I'm learning a little bit more about how to balance and, by the individual. So it was not natural. It has taken time. But I would say, one of the lessons I've learned is that when you promote someone, keep your eyes forward after that delegation. If the team feels like you're ultimately still the one making the decisions, you will absolutely undermine that emerging leader's learning experience.
Totally.
And you will fail to gain the benefit of having promoted and, in theory, delegated a series of decisions to them. So I think, it is scary in the same way that focusing on an industry can be scary. But when you do it, it starts to snowball. It starts to really...
You can steal the learning opportunity from that person by trying to make the decisions for them or overly guide them.
Oh my gosh.
If you don't ever let them make a mistake, you're really stealing them.
Well said. Yeah, that is well said. And they might still respect you. They might still want to support you. They might still enjoy, the company as a whole. But they don't feel like they've really got the baton.
Yeah. So good.
Mm-hmm.
So when is it ever perfectly natural to know exactly what end of that micromanagement or macro management you should be on? Because you brought it up, Peter, okay, I don't know, have I pulled back too far and kind of just don't even keep an eye on it enough, or the other way where you're still making the decisions and you're overly coddling them, that person that you're trying to empower?
I'll give you just a quick example of a change that a leader has driven here at the company. My president's passionate about SMART goals. So I'm the CEO and he's the president, and there's a few functions organizationally that roll up to me, but generally it's, kind of sales and marketing. And then he helps oversee the day-to-day that I used to. And he has taught everybody about SMART goals, and it's part of our performance management process.
And you're talking about the acronym SMART, or
specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. And all of that needs to nest under the company-wide goals.
Sure.
And that's really helpful structure and specificity. I think specificity is often missing, especially with busy managers, like middle management that are torn in multiple directions. I think having the discipline, both as a manager and as an emerging leader, to say each quarter or month or on whatever timeline, here is my specific target. And the only answer at the end of the quarter is yes or no. Did we hit it or not? And you learn, sometimes you sandbagged a little bit and you got it done in the first month of the quarter and you're like, okay, you probably went easy on yourself. And then other times you don't, meet it and you reassess. And so I think specificity is kind of a cure a little bit for knowing how you're doing. I also think that as I think it's a skill to learn how to be a manager that you like. We all should recognize coaching is a high leverage activity. The output of the managers that work for me is their team's output.
Yeah.
If I can coach their thinking, if I can encourage the process as much as the achievement of a specific result, that's really helpful for every future kind of goal that they're going to set.
Yeah.
So it's a process. You work together, and as long as they've got a growth mindset and you've got that culture of continuous improvement, I assume that we all approximate growth over time. We all sort of head in that direction.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Like what you said, it's about the thinking. You're coaching to create a culture of problem solvers, not coaching to give the answer to the people.
Exactly.
That's not coaching.
Don't leave that monkey on my desk.
Yeah. That's stealing. It's not coaching. You're stealing the opportunity for them to learn. So.
Right.
Yeah, it's so good.
Hey, Mike, what are you doing October 15th through 17th?
I'm going to be in Illinois with you at MTForecast.
We will be, and Nick will be there, and it is always a fantastic event. Nick, of course, will be there with us as well. Roger Atkins from NTMA, Travis Egan from AMT, of course, lots of great speakers. One of the ones I am most always keen to hear is from the ITR economics crew. Michael will be there, and their talks are always just absolutely fascinating. They talked at the MFG meeting.
Yeah, the one in San Antonio, and that was a ton of fun. And of course, I'm a numbers guy, so I love seeing the trends and the kind of where they see everything going. And I think it does give us really great insight into, just where the industry's heading and how maybe as people in the industry, we should be responding to that.
Yeah, because the reality is economics and the economy is kind of frothy right now. There's a lot going on, and being keyed into the themes, the strategies, the trends that are happening in the next year plus are really important. And I think any business leader, especially in machining right now, because it's so dependent on all sorts of macro trends, really need to be there to hear firsthand what's going on in the business.
So how does someone register for it, Paul?
They go to amtonline.org and just click on the events tab at the top and choose MTForecast.
Well, it's going to be fun. We'll see you there.
See you there, buddy.
Yeah, well, as we wrap up, Peter, it's funny, before we hit record, you're like, oh, there's so many people here who you guys have on or whatever. Like, I don't know how good I'll be at talking about strategy. And Paul and I are just blown away. Like, even the first time I was in your shop, just, coming to visit you, I was like, man, that guy's really got it going on. And you're clearly running a great organization. And I see the book, The Goal, behind you. Is that what that is? The Goal?
I think, yeah.
Yeah. So, you're reading the right books. That's required reading at our company. So I love it. I just love everything that you're doing. And I really do think you equipped and inspired the metalworking nation on how to create a strategic growth vision for your organization. So thank you for doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we could keep talking, I'm sure, for a while. I really appreciate the opportunity to see you guys and have a lot of appreciation for what you're doing for the industry. So thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Well, we're just a conduit to bring on wise people like yourself to share what they're doing. And it was inspiring. It was fantastic. Everything I hoped it would be. So appreciate it very much, Peter.
You bet. Yeah. I'm sure we'll cross paths soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, the way we close every episode is with kind of the same mantra. And I know you talked about your utilization. I know this will resonate with you, but what we say is, hey, if you can't create a strategic growth vision, you're not making chips.
And if you're not making chips,
you're not making money. Bam.